Hello friends, thank you for watching this vlog, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Look down on the right side of your screen, there is a button subscribe. Please subscribe, because many of you are viewing this channel but don't subscribe, and it's a disappointed point for our team. And of course, we'll be talking about the serious problems, reasons, and consequences from this week for Ukraine and around Ukraine. The visit of the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to the United States to participate in the General Assembly and the United Nations Security Council and meet with US President Joe Biden passed without a significant breakthroughs, but became a marker for understanding the situation around Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky's speeches in the General Assembly and Security Council were synchronized with the United States and aimed at fighting for the position of the countries of Global South, appeal in nuclear and food security, proposals for reform in the United Nations Security Council, and including the countries of Asia and Africa, as well as further discrediting the position of Russian Federation. At the same time, attention is drawn to the fact that Volodymyr Zelensky did not use the United Nations rostrum to put forward any new peace initiatives. Moreover, he insisted on the need to implement the Ukrainian peace formula, providing for the actual surrender of the Russian Federation, thus confirming the unchanged position of Ukraine on it. Meetings in Congress and with the US President also left a mixed impression. On the one hand, Biden confirmed the United States' readiness to continue supporting Ukraine as long as necessary. But on the other hand, no new types of weapons were allocated to Ukraine, for example, long-range ATACMS missiles, and a new package of military assistance amounted to $325 million is inertial and supportive in nature, which does not allow Ukraine to plan new large offensive operations. In addition, at the meeting in the White House, presidents discussed painful issues for Ukraine on the fight against corruption and reforms. A program for joint work on the military-industrial complex on the territory of Ukraine, for example, production of air defense system, was announced, and the Commissioner for the Reconstruction of Ukraine from the United States, Penny Pritzker, was also introduced. Moreover, while the Republicans in the White House of Representatives, remain blocked by the United States President's request to allocate additional assistance to Ukraine in the amount of $24 billion. The dialogue between Volodymyr Zelensky and the leaders of the Republican majority in the House was quite critical and sharp. This forced the President of Ukraine to use, in fact, the last political argument and admit that if the United States doesn't provide new aid to Ukraine, then Ukraine will lose the war. Shift responsibility for this on the United States and Republicans. As for the topic of security guarantees for Ukraine, work on which was announced at the meeting of the presidents, it is likely that we are talking about the implementation of the statement of the G7 countries, which was done during the NATO summit in Vilnius. Let us recall that then, in the absence of the decision of Ukraine's membership in alliance, the G7 countries agreed on long-term framework commitments to strengthen Ukraine's security. Among the promises are the supply of military equipment, training of the Ukrainian military, intelligence exchange, and assistance in the cyber defense, and the sanctions against the aggressor. At the same time, one must understand that security guarantees in practice turn out to be promises of additional assistance and a demonstration of unwillingness to create collective defense formats with Ukraine and send troops to defend Ukraine. Now, in a difficult political situation, Ukraine is trying to achieve the signing of a political symbolic compensatory agreement with the United States on such security guarantees. There is also a dialogue on this direction with France and Germany. The issue of guarantees of personal political support and security for President Volodymyr Zelensky and his team from the Biden administration is also difficult. This problem is due to the fact that public opinion in Ukraine is changing. The president's ratings are declining, go down, and maybe the peak of this popularity has already passed. And the ruling team is losing support. In this regard, the political activity of his opponents begins to increase, which leads to more fierce attack from the right-wing opposition and media. What complicates the situation in that fighting at the front is reaching a dead end, and the Western press continues to spread information that without significant results, Ukraine risks losing the support of the West, which will persuade it to negotiate with the Russian Federation or force the war. In this situation, Volodymyr Zelensky is looking for guarantees from the United States regarding continued support, military, political, economic, for Ukraine and his team, and also guarantees that the United States will not support opposition activity inside of Ukraine, attacks on the presidential team of an anti-corruption or nationalist nature in Ukraine, and will not insist on a holding election. That is the position of United States Senator from Republican Party Lindsey Graham, who said that the election should be held in Ukraine in this personal position and not the United States White House official position. At the same time, there are no significant changes in the front yet. The Ukrainian armed forces continue offensive operation in the Melitopol and Bakhmut directions. There are fierce local battles in the southern direction on the western outskirts of the village of Robotyno, as well as in the area of the city Bakhmut in the Donetsk region. The occupation, the liberation of the Ukrainian armed forces can be considered a small tactical success for Ukraine. Andriivka in this area of Klishchiivka. For its part, the Russian Federation is trying to recapture lost position here. The Russian armed forces also intensified attacks in the northeast of Kupiansk direction, but without significant success. There are no significant changes in territorial control. Currently, Ukraine and the Russian Federation are waging a war of attrition rather than for territory. So it is unlikely that it will be possible to achieve a significant turning point in favor of one of the parties' sides in the nearest future. This year, the Ukrainian armed forces not very likely to be able to reach the coast of Azov Sea and even recapture the city of Tokmak in the Zaporozhye region. It will be very difficult. Because of this war of attrition, the new methodology of leading this war both sides are using. I'm talking about the missile attacks from the Russian Federation to Ukraine. This week, more than 44 missiles were used in different regions of Ukraine. I'm talking, of course, Ukrainian attacks on Crimea and Russian deep territories. For example, a very successful attack on the headquarters of Black Sea Fleet of Russian Federation. Due to the problem associated with the export of agricultural products, tensions between Ukraine and Poland have increased. Ukraine has already filed claims to the World Trade Organization against Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia due to their ban of the import of Ukrainian products. For its part, the European Commission is considering the possibility of protecting Poland, Hungary, Slovakia from this claim, from this Ukrainian claim. The United States considers the ban of grain imports from Ukraine to be a sovereign decision of European countries. An internal European Union investigation is also possible. Brussels is seeking to find a solution so that there is no need for future investigation into this matter. Poland says that it will not allow Ukraine into the European Union if the issue of grain export will not be resolved. The meeting of the presidents of Ukraine and Poland planned on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, where was planned to discuss the export of Ukrainian agricultural products, was also cancelled. Speaking at a briefing for Polish media in New York, Polish President Andrzej Duda defended Warsaw's decision to introduce restrictions on the import of Ukrainian agricultural products. He compared Ukraine to a drowned man who can be pulled into the depth. For his part, speaking at the United Nations, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, expressed a certain degree of resentment towards neighboring countries that seek to have the ban on the export of Ukrainian agricultural products extended. It is alarming how some of our friends, said Zelensky, in Europe are playing out solidarity in the political theater. We create a thriller on the grain. It may seem that they are playing their part, but in fact they are helping to set the stage for the Moscow actor. After these words, President Volodymyr Zelensky, the ambassador of Ukraine, was invited to the Polish Foreign Ministry. At the same time, at least 2 ships loaded with the grain have already left the ports of Ukraine, Chernomorsk, entering there without a grain corridor and approval from the Russian Federation. Ukraine is trying to restart agricultural export despite the opposition of Russia and the war. At the same time, the issues of the freight and insurance of ships in the actual combat zone remain pressing. Moreover, just yesterday, off the coast of Romania in the Black Sea, the ship Sima under the flag of Togo was blown up by a sea mine. The Verkhovna Rada adopted the second reading draft law number 9610 on amendments to the law of the Ukraine of national minorities, communities of Ukraine, on certain issues of the implementation of the right and freedoms of personal belongs to national minorities communities of Ukraine. The adoption of this law was mentioned among the recommendations of the European Commission on the granting European Union candidate status. It was introduced into Parliament in connection with the conclusion of the Venice Commission, which proposed to bring the law into with the provisions of European Convention of Human Rights, the Convention of Protection of National Minorities, and the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages. This bill, following changes to the law of the Ukraine of national minorities, which was adopted in last year, the possibility is being introduced to restrict the rights and freedoms of national minorities in the interest of state security. At the same time, the clear regulation is introduced when exactly such restrictions are possible. The amendment to the first paragraph, restriction of the rights and the freedoms of national minorities only in the interest of national security, territorial integrity, and the public order to prevent unrest or crime, for public health, to protect the rights and freedoms of others in such restrictions is necessary in democratic society. The Cabinet of Ministers will determine the procedure for recognizing a settlement as one where national minorities traditionally live or where they constitute a significant part of population. There is no mention of a percentage, and only in settlements that receive this status will be language concessions for national minorities, in particular for communication with authorities and when using toponymy and so on. In fact, we can say that the relief for national minorities is being introduced manually. Very interesting, Amendment 33 was also taken into account, which supplements, which proposed to prepare and submit the consideration of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, a draft law of Ukraine aimed at taking into account the expert assessment of the Council of Europe and its bodies on the rights of national minorities communities in certain areas. It is precisely the conclusions of the Council of Europe and the monitoring groups of the conventions that call for expanding the use of language of national minorities in education, media, and so on. In general, this law does not yet restore the rights of national minorities which were guaranteed by the Constitution of Ukraine and previously established legislation. But the government hopes to smooth the conflict with Hungary, where Ukraine is often accused of persecuting the Hungarian national minority, which was the reason for statements about the readiness to block Ukraine's accession to the European Union. But this law does not solve the main problem of Hungarian community of Ukraine. The opportunity to receive education in schools and higher education institutions in their native language in the public sector. In the private sector, this problem has been partially resolved. Of course, we understand the problem of national minorities is very important for modern world because unfortunately, we see a lot of national wars still in our world. For example, situation in Nagorno-Karabakh. On September 9, Azerbaijan announced the start of local anti-terrorism measures in Nagorno-Karabakh. Their goal is to ensure the safety of Azerbaijan military personnel and restore the constitutional order and territorial integrity of Azerbaijan Republic in the region. It is worth noting that all parties, sides of conflict, behave non-linearly. Russia peacekeepers were virtually inactive, and Armenia generally abandoned the fight for Nagorno-Karabakh. As a result, the unrecognized Republic of Karabakh, Armenians de facto capitulate, accepting Azerbaijan's conditions, disarmament of the army and dissolution of government bodies. The Armenian leadership, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and his team believe that the current attack of Nagorno-Karabakh is an element of the Russian plan and pressure on Armenia to force Armenia to request help and agree to the integration processes that Moscow is currently offering to Yerevan. Therefore, Armenia actually abandoned the defense of Nagorno-Karabakh, which led to its quickly capitulation. It is likely that Armenia is counting on the fact that by giving Karabakh to Azerbaijan, the conflict will be resolved and it will be able to feel secure, reducing its dependence from the Russian Federation. Armenia will be able to develop relations with the West, counting on joining to European Union together with Georgia, to Turkey in the future. But if Nikol Pashinyan and his team are right, and this is a Moscow's attempt to punish Yerevan, then there is a high probability that Azerbaijan's territorial claims to Armenia will be realized not only in terms of Karabakh, but also in relation to the other territories, which could critically threaten the existence of Armenian statehood. Armenia will also face complex processes for the arrival of Karabakh refugees and internal protest with a patriotic source and international influence. Thank you, friends, for watching this vlog. Don't forget to subscribe. Please write down your question. I'll be lucky to answer it. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.